But here's a great picture. This is from Henry Ford's English School. And if you look closely at this, what this is a picture of is graduates at Henry Ford's English Language School. And what do you see what this is? They're standing in behind here. It says Ford English School, and it's round, and it's got a big handle at the top here. It's a melting pot. Isn't that cute? All right. So again, at one level, this kind of policy, sort of Americanization, is not racism. I mean, we see it, I think, as it makes you cringe today, our current sensibilities. But at the root of this is still the idea that it's environment and not heredity. You'll see when people begin to think of people's characteristics as immutable and measurable and inherited, that's a different kind of thing. It calls for very different kinds of prescriptions than the melting pot. The melting pot does not work if you think that people are born with or without the ability to self-govern. Right? If you think that that races are immutable, that races are, that with each race there are certain characteristics. Okay. So before we turn now to the scientific racism of the time, I would like to remind you that there was also unscientific racism, and this too is very different. This is a slide of a poster for the Spring Festival and Entertainment to be held on Flag Day, and you were invited to attend by the Knights of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And if you could read all this, it's very family picnic oriented. There's dancing and music, and I think there are games for kids. You definitely want to bring your kids to this Ku Klux Klan event. It's not the same thing as the Ku Klux Klan today was, but there were some unsettling similarities. The Ku Klux Klan was revived in the 1960s, so this is already the second iteration. The original Ku Klux Klan is a Reconstruction era phenomenon. This is revived in the 1960s in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and it did enjoy astonishing success. There may have been as many as 5 million members in the 1920s. But unlike earlier or later KKK, the new one was active outside of the South, and its attacks were not limited to blacks. The Klan also took on a nativist anti-everyone stand with slogans like "America for Americans" and "Human liberty is possible only under Protestant Christianity." They were also obviously anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic, anti-Mormon, and anti-immigrant. But they were also much more of a mainstream group, as you can see from the kind of picnics they held. None other than Hugo Black, who was a senator from Alabama and an FDR appointee to the Supreme Court, was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. They marched in 1920. They marched on Washington with something like 40,000 members. And in 1924, the Democratic Party failed to add plank to their convention condemning the Ku Klux Klan. So they were a fairly broad-based organization. They also brought lawsuits, and they were successful in bringing a suit in Oregon to prevent parochial schools from operating, which I think is kind of interesting. You wouldn't think of that that's certainly not the kind of goal that the Ku Klux Klan has now. But parochial schools then were Catholic schools, of course. And their idea, remember the conflicts earlier about Catholic schools. The Klan's point of view now is that we need to bring Catholic kids back into Protestant schools. That was eventually overturned, but they were at least successful for a little while on that. Okay, so with only a few minutes left, we need to turn a little bit more to to scientific racism. As I said before, it's distinct because it relies on science, the best science of the day, careful studies, prominent scientists, careful measurement, and real attempt to reject theories that don't fit the data. It's also built on Darwin and Mendel, immutable inheritance, and the not entirely correct idea of a linear progression of species, and therefore races. The idea that one species is replaced by a more fit species in a kind of linear progression, so everything that came later is better, faster, and more sophisticated than what came before. That's not how we think of Darwinian evolution today, but it was widely believed at the time, even by biologists that were looking for that linear progression in the fossil record. Part of a good piece of evidence that these guys were real scientists was the rejection of phrenology. Remember, phrenology was the basis that our friend Blumenbach used to invent the word Caucasian, right? He used phrenology on skulls from various parts of the world and decided that skulls with different shapes must have belonged to people with different social and moral capabilities. But Alfred Binet, who starts out as a real brain measurer, he gives that up. He really finds that it doesn't work and turns instead to intelligence testing. And then his followers then take his work. Binet himself was not a eugenicist at all. He was, as we'll see, much more benign. But his work is, he does his work in France. In the United States, his work is co-opted by people who have different plans, and we get eugenics and racism. Right? One of the reasons that the brain measuring comes to an end, besides Binet finding that it didn't really work, is just too funny not to mention, is at the end of the 18th century when this was really established that it was simply widely believed that if you had a bigger brain, you had to be smarter. Smart people in Europe would bet each other on the size of their brains. Now, this is not a bet that you can ever collect on, because to measure your brain, it's best if you're dead. So this was going on, and what happened when Anatole France died, it turned out that he had a brain of only 1,017 grams, whereas the average is about 1,400 grams. And now he was, of course, the favorite French intellectual. So that was a big, devastating blow, especially when it turned out that, by and large, German intellectuals had bigger brains than French intellectuals. So the French decided that really wasn't such a great theory. And Alfred Binet, of course, is French. I don't want to say that influenced Binet. I think he was playing it straight. But nonetheless, this idea that people would bet on the size of their brain is, I think, pretty hilarious. Here's a quote from H.H. Goddard, who was the guy in the United States who takes Binet's work and applies it. Right? think it's worth reading. Stated in its boldest form, our thesis is that the chief determiner of human conduct is the unitary mental process, which we call intelligence. That this process is conditioned by a nervous mechanism, which is inborn. That the degree of efficiency to be attained by that nervous mechanism and the consequent grade of intellectual and mental level for each individual is determined by the kind of chromosomes that come together with the union of germ cells. That is but little affected by any later influences except such serious accidents as may destroy part of the mechanism. Right? So in a nutshell, this is the idea that Goddard has. Again, it is not, and we'll talk a little about Binet later, it's not the idea that Binet necessarily has, but Goddard states it this way. And you see, it's a unitary mental process. There is a single thing called intelligence. He doesn't say it here, but he's going to measure it. And that thing is determined entirely by chromosomes. Right? They come together with the union of germ cells. He's talking sperm and egg here, what they refer to as germ cells. So there's no room whatsoever for environment. This is not, contrast this even with Ford's English school. You're just not going to, it doesn't make any sense, right? If you really believe, as he does, that what matters is intelligence, it's a single thing, I can measure it, and it's determined fully by chromosomes. The only thing the environment could possibly do is break it with accidents and stuff like that. See, there's a fairly serious difference here. Goddard is, as what we'll see later, brings Binet's test to Ellis Island. But Goddard's also famous for inventing a word, and the word is moron. Goddard defined a tripartite scale of intelligence. Well, it's more than that, more than tripartite. But anyway, he defined 3 words. An idiot is somebody with a mental age of less than 3. An imbecile has a mental age of 3 to 7. And morons have a mental age of 7 to 12. The average mental age of an adult is supposed to be 16. So Goddard does not think that idiots or imbeciles are particularly scary. They don't tend to reproduce. Morons, however, that's what you have to be worried about. Because morons, they can reproduce. And of course, if intelligence is directly related, immutably fixed by chromosomes, the last thing you want is for morons to reproduce, right? Goddard takes his Binet test, a particularly harsh version of the Binet test. I should say that Alfred Binet was, he gave up on the idea of measuring brains after doing some tests that he was commissioned to do by the government of France. He was trying to find out ways to identify students who needed extra help in school or could be helped. It was rather a forward-looking and compassionate idea. And Binet's method was simply to ask lots and lots of different questions. He didn't think it mattered very much what you asked. He just asked a lot of questions and then tried to correlate them with what people who were believed to be normal of a certain age could do. Right? So if you could answer the same questions as most 16-year-olds, then you were at a mental age of 16. It was just that much. He didn't put too much stock in the mental age. He was really just trying to find people who were behind where they should be in school. Goddard is the one in the United States who took that took to Ellis Island and gave the Binet test to immigrants. Now, we're not talking about immigrants who've been here for a while. He does this literally on Ellis Island. He was hired as a consultant to Ellis Island in 1912 because laws from the 1880s had called for exclusions of the exclusion of mental defectives. But this is not something that the physicians at Ellis Island wanted to do or knew how to do. The procedures were not defined by Congress. Congress simply said mental defectives need to be excluded. And so they hired Goddard to come and talk about this. It should be noted that in 1907, we'll learn about this later, there was an act passed specifying the exclusion of imbeciles after Goddard's definition of imbeciles. Those are people age, mental age 3 to 7. Anyway, so Goddard is involved. People who care about immigration and have a restriction event are watching him, and they send him to Ellis Island, and this is what he finds, that 83% of Jews, 80% of Hungarians, 87% of Russians, and so on, tested below age 12, therefore were morons. This is, kind of an amazing thing, given that this is a written test taken by people who were often illiterate. They had, just endured a long ride, a long boat ride in unpleasant conditions, and they were given a test. Some probably never held a pencil before. There were interpreters. There was at least one interpreter because one of the interpreters was quoted as having said, "I could not have done this test when I arrived," but Goddard did not listen. This was a fairly small test, and it is not as influential as the next test that I want to talk about, which is on World War I recruits. This was done by Robert Yerkes, who's another disciple of Goddard, and it's a huge undertaking. They were able to do this because World War I brought together, I think, like it was more like 2 million recruits, but they were able to test 1.75 million of them. So talk about a big N. This is big science. And he found, once again, that the average mental age of white, so-called white Americans, which are, I guess, distinct then from Russian, Italian, Polish, and certainly from Negro. It's 13.8. That's just, it's not moron, but it's close. Very, very close. It's very, very frightening. And it's also sort of contradictory because the average mental age of an adult is defined as 16. They said it was 16, so clearly there's something amiss. Yerkes' response is that the test that established 16 as the official average mental age were probably too restricted. They probably didn't have enough people in it. This really was the average mental age now. It really was 13, and that we really were in a heap of trouble. All right, you have just a few minutes. I just have to tell you, this was the test. This was one of the tests. Yerkes is very, very careful about this, and he wrote up how he did it. This is a test. This is the beta test. There was a written test called the alpha test for recruits who were literate. This is a beta test for recruits who were not literate. And it's very choreographed. Recruits would be set in a room, and one person would shout directions in English while there would be another person who would do things. So we were trying to overcome even language barriers. Right? They didn't have interpreters for every language, but they did try very, very carefully to get this idea across. So you can imagine yourself sitting in a room. You've just been recruit World War I. Your English isn't so good, and some guy's pantomiming up front that you're supposed to complete these pictures. Right? So what's missing? What do we see here? Some of these are great. How about that one? What's missing? How do you fix that? Strings, great. And that, yeah. Don't you think recent immigrants should know that tennis is played with a net? And here's some bowling, that's, of course. And this, by the way, was marked wrong if you put the ball in the alley, because you can clearly see from this that he hasn't released it yet. Not making that up. What about that one? Whoops. God, I've blown it. There goes my intelligence test. I'm in trouble. I failed it. Worse. All right, so what's missing here? You see that? The what? Oh, very good. We must have seen pictures of these in museums or something. It's a record player from God knows when, and it's a big sound horn. All right. Okay, we got to finish here. But also reported by Yerkes. Two more facts you need to know before we go. This was also reported by Yerkes, but not prominently. That if you look at the years, if you break these down by years of U.S. residents, you see the scores inexorably rising. Okay? And secondly, you need to know that while Yerkes did not disavow these results, his colleague, Carl Brigham, did, but only after the immigration debate. And later in life, Brigham went on to become the secretary of the College Entrance Exam Board. As such, he was, in fact, the author of the SAT. Draw your own conclusions.